It's been slow and steady for the Arizona Cardinals so far with free agency. Right move, wrong move, forced move.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Cardinals, Alex Clancy here. Follow me on Twitter at Clancy's Corner. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Please go to the YouTube channel, Locked On Cardinals. Subscribe, turn the notifications on so you can see my big dumb face whenever I do a new podcast. And then, you can get it wherever you get your podcast also. Apple, Spotify, Google, you know the drill. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen each and every day. Free and available on all platforms. Your stop for daily Arizona Cardinals content. What I do, I'm just going to reintroduce myself here for a little bit. What I do is I want people to think. I want people to not always just regurgitate what they see big name pundits say about the Arizona Cardinals and about prospects and about the future. I challenge people to think. I do not say things I don't believe. I don't tweet things I don't believe. I don't do things for clickbait. I don't do things to be a hot take artist, which is stupid. What I do is I try to think outside of the box as it pertains to an organization who's been a perennial bottom dweller since their inception. Maybe try something different. Maybe do things a different way. Maybe adhere to the polar opposite of how you subjected yourself and position yourself since this team was in Chicago. That's what I do. Radical thinking, it is not. And I'd much rather have new conversations instead of just making up, potential storylines that could or could not happen. I really appreciate the engagement on Twitter. If you haven't, I'd love to interact with people. It's the best part of this. It's the best part of this. And trust me, throughout this whole free agency process, there are going to be storylines that need to be discussed. There are going to be storylines that need to be tweaked. If they're very generic and everybody's talking about it, I'm going to tweak them and position them towards how the Arizona Cardinals' future can be better than what it's been. That is a solemn promise that I promise to you, that I will never not make you leave a podcast thinking, I never thought about it that way. And again, I don't make things up out of thin air. This is just how my brain works, for better or worse. So the Cardinals have come out of the gate slowly. The 48 hours of legal tampering is over. Free agency is upon us officially, even though it was upon us 2 days ago. I don't really understand that. Why don't you just start free agency on Monday? Well, it's the new year. Move it 48 hours back. Just give me a break. Cardinals have come out of the gate slowly. And I will discuss more in depth about the departures of Byron Murphy and Zach Allen. I will talk about the one external signing the Arizona Cardinals have made in Kyzir White from the Philadelphia Eagles, coming back with his linebacker coach and defensive coordinator, now the head coach in DC of the Arizona Cardinals. Will Anderson, Kelvin Beachum, sure. It'll be discussed today. But I wanted to take this first segment to kind of put two potential reasons out there as to why the Cardinals have been a little bit slower out of the gate. I have my thoughts on one of them and why I think, but I think it's also important to look at the other side. Like, this could be a reality. So the one that I think the reason why the Cardinals have come out slow is because this is a raw lump of dough, this roster. And the Cardinals, hopefully, with Monty Ossenfort, Jonathan Gannon, Michael Bidwell, know what they're going to bake out of this raw lump of dough, what it's going to look like, whether it be cookies or bread or whatever else in between. Donuts? Could be donuts. You have to deep fry donuts. When you put it in the oven, whatever. Come on, I'm not a baker. I think that we're looking at an organization that is taking stock of the pieces on this roster and understanding that there is, let's be lenient, more than a 50% chance the Cardinals are going to be drafting in the top 10 next year, just by happenstance with Kyler Murray's injury, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It may not be the case. Maybe the Cardinals, maybe Kyler Murray comes back in week 6 and they're 3-2 or 2-3. And maybe we're having a completely different conversation. It's not likely because Kyler Murray's, it looks like he's going to miss more than 5 games. But what they're looking at is you can't rush this process for a complete overhaul culturally, roster, new regime, all rookie coaches pretty much in the position that they're in, including GM. And taking stock of that, being like, you know what? It's not worth throwing money at a player this offseason. It's just not. So there's that, and that's what I think it is. The other side is, which could be as rational. It really could, with the current systemic issues the Arizona Cardinals are facing and the current uncertainty surrounding what this coaching staff is going to be able to do. If Monty Ossenfort's good at his job yet, Kyler Murray, when he's going to come back, what the rest of the roster is going to look like, free agents just don't want to come play here. And that's a viable reason why the Cardinals haven't done much yet. Now, bringing in Kyzir White, and I'll talk about later, that's an impactful move, especially for the amount of money he's getting, which isn't a whole lot. But both of those options, thought processes as to why the Cardinals haven't done a whole lot, and this is as I'm recording this, okay? I'm not doing this live, so if something breaks right after this podcast, I didn't forget to mention it. This is just the nature of the free agency beast right now. But looking at why they've been slow out of the gate, I believe that they're just being methodical. Risk reward. And if they don't add a whole bunch this out, they're going to have to add players to fill out the roster. So there's a lot of free agents. Does that lend one to think, like I think it thinks, that the Cardinals are definitely going to trade down and try to accumulate as much draft capital as possible? I've mentioned this a lot, and I will continue to do so because this is my podcast and this is what I think. And feel free to leave a comment, let's engage. It'll take 2 off seasons for the Cardinals to potentially and completely shift the trajectory of this organization, strengthen roster, depth of roster, strength of leadership, and they could take this thing to the moon. It's not crazy. It happens all the time in the NFL. So maybe not during free agency, this, portion of the next 24 months or the next whatever it is. Come on. The next year from now till free agency through the draft next year. But it's going to take 2 of these solid off seasons, hitting on most draft picks, signing timely free agents, players not getting injured, retaining talent, for the Cardinals to go from where they are now to potentially the top of the NFC West and beyond. The NFC West is in flux, man. The Cardinals are by far the biggest dumpster fire right now, but sometimes, as I've mentioned, and I will continue to mention, hitting rock bottom is the best possible thing that could have happened to this organization because now they can rebuild. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. Byron Murphy and Zach Allen going elsewhere. Cardinals problem, money. There's a couple different options. I'm going to break them all down. You can bet your bottom dollar that that's the case. Next, Locked On Cardinals. Talking about betting, see, that is a masterful transition there. The midway point of the NBA season is here, and now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by the aforementioned FanDuel, because now new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scorers and threes drained. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with the same game parlay. So don't miss your chance as March Madness is upon us to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Slow and steady doesn't mean unprepared and unready. Get nursery rhymes on a Wednesday. What has gotten into me? Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. It's been a weird 36 hours or so. Kind of a flashback to the beginning of last offseason when Steve Keim sat on his hands, nothing happened. It's like, oh, is this all over again? Is Monty Osborne another Steve Keim? Stop. It's not even it's too early to tell. Steve Keim held this organization hostage for a decade. This isn't that. This is a world full of possibilities. This is being methodical. Trusting Monty Osborne implicitly, yeah, I think it's just a thing that needs to happen. And then watching Byron Murphy and Zach Allen walk flipped in that order. Zach Allen signed first with Denver for a whole lot of bacon. A whole lot. $15 million a year, $30 million guaranteed. Reunites with Vance Joseph. Goes to Denver, where Sean Payton, who could have been an Arizona Cardinals head coach, just interesting. And then Byron Murphy lands in Minnesota, another potential Arizona Cardinals head coach, Brian Flores there. Just interesting to me. Byron Murphy didn't sign for a whole lot. 2 for 22. Zach Allen signed for a lot of bacon. What does this mean? Because we talked a lot about it. I mean, there's a chance that both of them would be gone. There's a small chance, very slim chance that both of them would be back. But the better odds would be that one of them would be gone and one would be back. And now that they're both gone, this is the collateral damage that I was talking about. This is the collateral damage I was talking about, where it's like, if you need a hard reset, this is something that needs to happen. You know, they weren't going to give Zach Allen that much money. The Byron Murphy contract was interesting because it wasn't a whole lot. You'd think that it was because of his injury concerns, his back concerns, missed the second half of the last 2 seasons. And he was never and I tweeted this out, and this is not like, oh, they're gone, let's talk crap about him. Not at all. They were very serviceable, especially the last season when they both played. They were great. Serviceable is the wrong word. But neither of them are elite. It's not like the Cardinals just didn't give them enough money to keep them. I wanted to stay, but the Cardinals didn't pay me enough. That wasn't this. They weren't going to give Zach Allen that much money. They weren't going to give Byron Murphy that much money because neither of those two guys are like, oh, perfect. Now the Cardinals roster is complete. This is a roster that's in flux. This is a roster that is going to be evolving and moving. You're going to see a lot of rookies. You're going to see a lot of, probably serviceable veterans. They're going to be on this roster playing in 2023. And paying them that much money, especially when 2023 is set to be a potential throwaway year compared to where the Cardinals were the last couple seasons, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to give them that money. And who's to say Byron Murphy could come back? Both of these are short-term deals, but the Cardinals are not in a situation right now where they can just pay guys to bring them back at a high level. I mean, they got $50 million guaranteed, I think, between the two of them, close to that. Say the Cardinals don't have that kind of cake right now. They don't have that kind of cheese. So, yeah, it's sad to see them go, I think, because I've talked a lot about, this team needs as many Arizona Cardinals as they can possibly have. Well, that's stupid. No, people who've been drafted by this team, who got a second contract by this team, who are long-term employees of this team. Cardinals, they're few and far between, baby. And it's going to get slimmer and slimmer until it doesn't, until it starts to bolster up. And this is all about building from the ground up. You wish them best of luck. If Byron Murphy becomes a perennial Pro Bowler, would you be shocked? Kind of. Hopefully he stays healthy. And then Zach Allen, he's going to be a force. He is. But for that paycheck, that's Walton money. That's not Bidwell money. So that's why he ended up in Denver, got a lot of cheese, reunited with Vance Joseph. And it's something, it's the first kick in the nether regions. So this is going to be a process. This is going to be a process. The Cardinals did make a couple signings, 2 in-house, 1 external. What does it mean? I'm going to talk about all 3 of them next, Locked On Cardinals. So, there are situations you can put yourself in where you can strive to be the best in any potential, category or situation. Today's episode is brought to you by Ultimate Football GM, which is just that. You've heard me talk about this mobile game app, and if you've ever thought that you'd make a good GM, you got to give this game a try. It's not as easy as you might think to create a dynasty, and when you play Ultimate Football GM, you get to control and manage every strategic aspect of your team as you play through seasons and lead your team to glory, trying to build a historic dynasty. With Ultimate Football GM, you're responsible for controlling the destiny of your franchise by hiring the right coaches and coordinators, managing all the finances, including negotiating player salaries and terms, navigating your franchise through free agency, the draft injuries, player personnel issues, and all the ups and downs of a season. All this in a challenging and realistic game world. Ultimate Football GM is completely free and playable offline. Play on the go as you want and when you want to. Locked On Cardinals listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code Locked On in all caps in the game store. That's Locked On in all caps. So make sure to check it out today. To download the game, just visit ultimate-gm.com or look it up on the app stores. That's ultimate-gm.com. Ultimate Football GM. Start your dynasty today. Free agency is upon us. The Cardinals have made a couple minor re-signings in-house and signed a former Philadelphia Eagle. Kelvin Beachum, the outspoken, in spurts, Kelvin Beachum, the great leader, more importantly, back on a 2-year deal, making more money this contract than I think he has in any contract he's re-signed. He signed with the Cardinals. And Will Hernandez, formerly of the New York Football Giants. It's going to shore up the right side, the interior of the offensive line on the right side, you'd think. Fine. Will Hernandez, when healthy last year, was good. He was average. He was solid. And good, average, and solid are 3 great adjectives to use for offensive linemen. Now, Kelvin Beachum came out, spoke it kind of against Kyler Murray, saying he has some growing up to do. I didn't hold a lot of weight in this like a lot of others did. I didn't think it was that big of a deal. They brought him back. Oh, this is going to cause a rift in the locker room. No, it's not. This is what leaders do. Kyler Murray probably does have some growing up to do. And if you've listened to this podcast more than once, you'll know that I think that he was a victim of his situation, lack of coaching, lack of leadership, lack of mentoring, and he's kind of learning about this on his own. And I think with this new regime, it's going to be a lot different, personally. If it's not, we can have that conversation then. But I give Kyler Murray, the winning player, the benefit of the doubt over a GM who held his organization hostage and never learned from his mistakes, and a head coach who's never won at any level. I'll take the winning player. That's what I'll do. So you bring back 2 offensive linemen, team-friendly deals, and then you sign Kyzir White from Philly. It's going to play outside in this 4-3, in the 4-3 base that Jonathan Gannon's going to run. And it was a team-friendly deal as well. He kind of got lost with the star-studded defense in Philly last year. But I'll tell you what, it checks the box. Team-friendly contract, young player, 2-year deal. He could be a perfect and integral part of that linebacking core in the 4-3 base with he and Isaiah Simmons on the outside and Zaven Collins in the middle, which you'd think is the setup. But I think there's a lot more questions about Zaven Collins and Isaiah Simmons than there is about Kyzir White. So it's a, you know, when they signed him, I was thinking like, is this going to be the splash signing? You know, is it going to be the splash signing? And as I continue, like an idiot, to say Kyzir White, who plays for a different organization, Kyzir White is who I'm talking about. I don't know. I've been talking about running backs. I have no idea where that went. Excuse me. I'm not going to edit that out because I'm a real person and I make mistakes. Kyzir White, 2-year deal with the Cardinals. You know, I think that he's going to be great for the locker room. I think he's going to be great on the field. He plays hard. He's won a lot of games in the NFL with Jonathan Gannon and Nick Rallis. Like, they won a lot of games. So with that, it's going to bring a pseudo-winning culture in from a player who's won before. It's kind of like Jordan Hicks when Jordan Hicks came in. Different player, but it's good to have kind of a Jordan Hicks infusion into a roster that is broken right now, mentally, emotionally, and physically. So far, so good for the Cardinals. I think that this is fine where they're at right now. I don't think that they're behind. I don't think they're ahead. I think they're exactly where they're supposed to be. There is a plan. You have to trust Monty Osborne, Jonathan Gannon, and Michael Bidwell have one. And through 48 hours or so, they're adhering to their plan. I will keep you up to date on Twitter at Clancy's Corner for all my thoughts on the moves the Cardinals have made. I will talk to you tomorrow with updated, if they make any more signings, talk more in depth about the roster they currently have because, and I'm just going to leave you with this, and one of my segments tomorrow will be this. They need to extend Budda Baker this offseason. He's got 2 years left on his deal. They need to think ahead because the end of the 2024 season will come very quickly. If you want Budda Baker to be an Arizona Cardinal for the future, you give him an extension now. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. I'll talk to you tomorrow.